So we're back here with another episode of the podcast. And again, I think this is like episode 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, but I still don't have a name. But I don't think we need it anyways. And today I have here Adam Menta from Menta Watches. And he's actually laughing at me as he looks at me.
I'm laughing only because everybody calls me Adam Menta. My last name is Adam Golden, but everybody refers to me as Adam Menta. Roman and I were talking about that too.
It's funny because I had just said that. You said, should I name him Adam Menta? I was actually going to stick to it. So Adam Golden here from Menta Watches, or you could just call him Adam Menta, however you want, you know. But anyways, I'm happy to have him here. He came by to visit me today. And actually, you're kind of going on this new venture, right? Where you want to start doing maybe YouTube and start putting more stuff on the channel. How's that going for you? Talk to me. How's that change going for you?
When all of you guys started getting really deep into the YouTube stuff, so a few years ago, when you started blowing up, Roman started blowing up, Roman and I were sitting in my office and I was talking about doing, you know, an SEO spend for my website to, you know, get new clients in, et cetera. And Roman was like, absolutely do not spend any money on SEO or anything like that. He was like, make YouTube videos. So we started and I got busy, I got lazy, kind of gave up on it. Also, I had been approached by some producers to do a vintage watch themed TV show. We filmed a sizzle reel for that with me and some other prominent vintage dealers. And I was always in the back of my head like, oh, well, if that ever happens, you know, I don't really need the YouTube stuff. I'm not going to waste my time doing it. I know you guys had also tried doing something more for modern watches. Ours was going to be more of like a antiques roadshow, you know, kind of this history behind stuff.
I would have loved that.
Not really like the deals per se. It's still possible that it happens, but it's, you know, these things take a lot of time. Apparently I'm not a Hollywood guy, so I don't really know. But anyway, so I kind of put the YouTube stuff on the back burner, got busy. Jordan, who was shooting it all, already has so much on his plate, and getting me to sit down and shoot anything for more than 5 minutes was always a challenge. Finally, recently, we brought Guy onto the team, our sexy man behind the camera. You guys think I'm joking. It's a shame that he's not in front of the camera, but maybe in the future we will have him. And the goal of bringing him on was also, he's a brilliant photographer. If you look at my social media from the past few months, those are all his pictures.
Wow, I like him.
Yeah, he does a great job, and he's just learning watches. He wasn't a watch photographer. So I think it's only going to get better. But his specialty is doing vlogs. If you go to his Instagram, which is @GuyTheGuide, he does these beautiful vlogs, travel vlogs, and stuff like that. And so that's really what he was good for. So I was like, listen, if I bring you on full time, I really want to make a play at doing some more YouTube and video-based content. And let's be honest, you know, the goalpost in the landscape in our world is always shifting. You know, it used to be websites. Now then it turned to Instagram. And now it's shifted into YouTube to drive more engagement and bring new clients in. I've built a very successful business based off of social media, Instagram, my website. And I just wanted to kind of keep going with that. And I think the next logical step was YouTube, and seeing you guys be very successful at it. I thought I could bring my take on it, which I think is going to be interesting. It's going to be a kind of hybrid of what you do, a little bit of day in the life, a little bit of educational, specifically you, not like Roman, where it's just a straight TV show, which is great. But I like what you do a lot. And I think I'm going to try to model a lot based on you, where it's some day in the life, but also educational, talking about new releases that you like, or, you know, this new topic in the watch world that's interesting that people want to hear. And that's interesting to me personally. Like I don't want to, you know, just pander to people. I want the information that I'm putting out to actually be worthwhile and educational and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be great. You know, I would say that right now in 2023, as opposed to when I first started doing videos, which I think was about 2014, maybe around then is when I first started doing videos of watches on YouTube, which I also told the person that told me I should do videos, that's a stupid idea. But right now it's a bit challenging in 2023 because there is so many, you know, every time I turn on YouTube, I see somebody else, you know, talking about watches, whether they know or don't know about watches, which a lot of them don't. They have the right to talk. I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, somebody will gravitate towards them. The one thing I would say is that, like, what you said sounds good because one thing I would say is and I've mentioned it to you before, is that I feel that YouTube, which is the real reason that I started doing watches, is that it should be educational. You know, when I first started doing these videos, originally from the first day, I thought, well, how am I going to do this, and how am I going to get my word across? And I noticed that a lot of people just didn't have a lot of knowledge, or would go and buy a, $250,000 Harry Winston, and then it's only worth 30 grand.
Right.
Tourbillon Harry Winston. Who the hell buys that? So then I said, you know what? Maybe we can do some educational videos to show people like where you want to go with these things, and that became very helpful. Nowadays, what I feel seems to be the trend, because everything is a trend, is personally what I think, and I talked to you about this the other day, is I feel that lately a lot of the videos are focusing a lot on the watch business.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that it focuses a lot on the watch business and the profits of business, because, of course, a successful business has to have a profit. And, although I find that it's probably working well for a lot of people and it does get a lot of views, I do feel that also what we need more is someone like you in the space that is going to help people talk about the hobby and show more things about the hobby of collecting watches and finding these nice watches, as opposed to just business and profits.
Yeah, I mean, listen, let's be real. Those videos of people doing, for example, live negotiations, they're entertaining to a degree. They're short form, they're fun to watch. People like hearing, business and hustle, and it's engaging. But I think you and I specifically are leaning towards an audience, or trying to cater to an audience that is actually into watches, not forget the transactional aspect of it.
Correct.
Forget the dollars and cents, like, oh, he made $1,500 flipping a watch in 20 minutes. We're talking to people, or we're hoping we're talking to people, and we're reaching people who are actually into watches because they love them. Because I know you and I both are.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you're a modern watch dealer who's collecting vintage watches because he loves them. I think there's different audiences for different people and different things, and they're welcome to do what they want. And I hope it helps them, and they grow and they're successful from it. I just think our end games are different, and the audiences that we're trying to reach are different. I would think the people listening to this podcast are falling into the category of people who are watch lovers,
Absolutely.
and watch buyers.
Yeah, no, obviously if they're here right now hearing both of us talking, then obviously you like watches and we already have something in common. Now, it's such a big field in the YouTube videos. Like there's people that do more the low end range. There's people that do more the high end range, which seems to be me. I can do videos on more inexpensive watches, but I don't think I'll be able to do them as well as the people that do those watches.
Right.
So I think for vintage watches, there's not a lot of people that can really come out and talk. And, I think you're going to do good in expressing yourself and the watches and the different interests as there is in that hobby. So I look forward to seeing like all the different pieces and all the different stuff. And I know you see a lot of stuff that maybe you can't put on camera, but we're hoping you can show some of the crazy heavy hitters.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was just going to say that. It's going to be interesting. We'll see. I'm going to do my best to show stuff that people don't normally get to see. I think because that's what's going to differentiate me. So like, for example, we have a really special Paul Newman Daytona coming in. I want to have my watchmaker disassemble it. I want to inspect the dial outside of the case, like in super detail, check the back of the dial, make sure everything is 100%. And it's a watch that typically I'm going to try to sell privately before I even entertain the idea of posting on social media or my website or anything like that, because it's a watch that if too many people see and it's out there, maybe the buyer of that watch for over $500,000 is not going to feel special. And on those watches that are so rare and unique, generally the buyers don't want a lot of people seeing them. So it's going to be touch and go. I'm going to have to kind of feel out how I'm going to do it. I'm hoping that I'll be able to at least film the content, and then at some point in the future, if it's not immediate, be able to release it, maybe with a buyer's permission or anything like that, and see how it goes. But I think that's another angle and avenue of content that I want to put out there is stuff at least in the vintage sphere that people don't get to see.
Yeah, definitely capture the content, because then you can figure out later on what you want to do with it. And I am going to tell you that, it is going to be a challenge to film and work and run a business and all that. It's going to take work. People think that this is just easy, and then you're going to have that other part, which is
No,
Adam,
this YouTube stuff's a grind.
hey Adam, what's up with
right.
with those T-shirts you're wearing? You know, like you get on every time I've had you on my channel, someone has to come in and say something on yours. And
Every single YouTube video I've ever been on, there's been somebody who's commented on my T-shirts. I'm gonna lay this to bed right now. I really like them. It's from a Japanese brand that I just absolutely adore. And I'm sorry if some people don't like them, but you don't have to wear them. I do. And if there was one guy who made a comment, I think he deleted it though, like, "Oh, I'll never buy a watch from him because of the T-shirt he was wearing," you know, or something to that effect. And I'm like, "Well, you were never buying a watch anyway."
Thank you. That translates to me that you weren't buying a watch anyways.
Right.
But, you know, when you put yourself out there and you record stuff and you throw it out there, people think it's easy. And I challenge everybody else, go ahead, do it. Go do a video, then put yourself out there. And you got to have thick skin because the internet is undefeated. Now, that being said...
I've never heard that expression. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Now, that being said, people will go and they'll comment. And you know what, man? I just take everything with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, you know, I don't care. They want to say something about me. That's fine. That's their opinion. But I tell you what, you know, I'm the type of person that for me to leave a bad review in a restaurant, like it would have to be the most epic proportion thing that happens for me to write, because I don't have time for that. And you know, it's easy for a guy to sit there and say, "Hey Adam, man, that's a cool watch in this episode," or you know what, Eric, thanks for having Adam on this episode. But when you have people that take the time to really sit there and like write all this negative stuff, I mean, I really just sit there and think like, who is this person?
That's a person who's not happy.
That has the time
anyways,
to do
you know?
that, you know. So you know, just get used to it, man. That's part of it. The good news is that
I have a thick skin, so
I'm
okay.
And although the watch community is a very, you know, it could be very brutal. For the most part, everybody is a watch lover. Everybody likes watches, so I don't see how it won't be a success. And I'm looking forward to doing, you know, more stuff and having you here on the podcast more and showing you some of my new purchases because I am going down that route lately on the vintage.
So
And
how many do we have left? 78 subs to go. You should be filming your road to 100 subs. That's what you should be doing.
I mean, I guess I'll start it with Adam now, and then maybe 10 years later we'll release it. You know, unless I finish it before that.
I mean,
That's actually a great idea.
It's a cool idea because obviously all of the subs are going to be different, and even if they're like the same reference or same model, it could be a completely different watch. You know, so you have a 1680, but from the red period, you know, red era, red Submariner, and you have white, you know, and then you want also you're saying you wanted meters first, like they're all going to be different. Yeah, you know, modern vintage doesn't matter. I think that'd be very interesting. I have, you know, all these people, the road to 1 million and all this stuff, but you're doing the road to 100 subs because that's what you want to buy because you like subs a lot, you know, and I think that's really cool. I think you should be filming that. Yeah,
those roads to 1 million, man. I mean, I did the math the other day on how many transactions you'd have to actually do to go from 1,500 to 1 million, and it's absurd. And I'm not down with any of that. People do that, but it's not my style.
I mean, I think the first guy, Jordan told me about it. The first guy who did it,
it's 100,000.
Yeah, you know, but like, listen, that was you know, when you're the first to do something and you make it interesting, that's great. But then everybody who comes after that is kind of like, you know.
I mean, listen, more props to anybody that's doing any of that. You know, I think it's creative, but again, my thing is that it puts the focus on the value and the making money of watches instead of the hobby of watches, which, you know, every single dealer out there, everybody that's out there making money on watches or on video, they have to understand that at some point, you know, they were dreaming about watches. Very few people just did it because it's an opportunity to make money.
Yes, COVID dealers, we call them. I mean, and that's how I got started in the business. You know, I was an attorney before I was a watch dealer, and I was just obsessed with watches, obsessed. And it was always like, oh, well, I just saw that guy post on Instagram that watch. It's $12,000. I don't have $12,000, but if I sell this watch that I have is $3,000, this one that's $5,000, maybe I could, you know, make it work. And then it just kind of snowballed. And I was like, you know what? I do this so often because I love it. Why don't I put up a website and start selling watches so I could fund my own collection? And I think a lot of people you know, do that. They sell watches on the side to fund their own, you know, passion and obsession. And it kind of snowballed from there. And I realized that I way enjoyed being involved in watches than I did practicing law. And here we are.
You know, was there like, now that you brought that up, was there like an exact moment when you kind of felt that moment where you said, maybe I should be doing this, or perhaps maybe somebody recommended it to you? You know, you should be doing this full-time professionally.
So
do you know when that breaking point was? I'll tell you mine.
For me, there was, it's hard to pinpoint a breaking time. I remember when I made the decision to go out full time, I was already thinking about it. It was already kind of like in the works because of the amount of time I was spending on it. At the time, I used to practice law in Moscow, Russia, and then I moved back here and I was practicing with my father and my best friend, the three of us. And we were involved in some litigation, and I was walking my newborn baby boy, and my dad and I were arguing as I'm walking on the street with him in Sunny Isles about the direction of the litigation, like where it was going and what we should do next. And he goes, "You need to make a decision, watches or law." And I'm like, huh, okay.
That was it.
That was it. That was it.
So you did have that moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had that breaking point where he gave me an ultimatum basically, and I was already halfway out the door anyways. So it made it simple. And then we were kind of fighting for a few months, but he quickly got over it and understood that this was the best decision for me, and it's what made me happy. And, I was successful at it. I was good at it. And that's that. What was your breaking point?
Well, I was actually, I was a public adjuster for 6 years.
Wow.
And,
So we both had menial jobs.
I made great money. I had a lot of free time. It was actually great. Now that I think about it, it was a great era in my life.
Well, this watch stuff doesn't work out,
And then, my license is still active. And then, I was good at it too. And then what happens is I had a lot of free time. So, I started, my dad's always been to watches, and so is my uncle as well, but to an extent. They don't go that crazy. They were just kind of within, the budgets.
Normal limits.
Yes. And then what happens is like one of my buddies that I was working with professionally in the previous industry, he was into watches or starting to get into watches. So I started trading and selling for my own stuff and then helping him out and a couple other friends get watches. And next thing you know, I'm coming here to the SIBO building 3 times a week, and I'm doing deals for myself. Again, it's all private stuff.
It's very similar to how I got started.
It's all private stuff. And then where it really took a turn was where in 1 week, 3 people in the building offered me a job. They said, "Do you want to work here?" And my reaction at first was like, no. I was just like, why the hell? What? Like, I actually thought of it like so beneath me at that moment. Like, what are you even talking about?
Right. Sell watches. What?
I loved watches, and I'm into watches. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it since I was a little kid, by the way, not since I was a kid. And then what really was the pushing point was that I have 2 really good friends of mine, but I've met them in different eras, and they're not friends themselves,
Right.
But they're 2 really good friends of mine. One is mid-50s. The other one is a couple years older than me. So they're different ranges. And both of them, in the next week after they offered me a job, both of them told me, you should really think about doing watches professionally. And they both said it the same way also. And then I was like, God, God,
yeah.
Are you talking to me? And then I went and I talked about it with my dad. I said, something really weird is happening. And maybe I should make a move. And then, the rest is history. And it's not easy. Everybody sees it now, but it's almost 15 years in the making.
It's a huge grind, and it's very difficult. When I got started, when I first got into watches, I was a modern guy. I had Panerai, AP, Rolex, whatever. And when I was living in Russia, that's when I started getting into vintage watches. But over there, they had no vintage watches because the first brand to open up shop there was after the end of the Cold War, Ulysse Nardin in the 1990s. So they didn't really have a lot of vintage watches. I've picked up a few random things over the years, but not a lot. So I first started buying vintage watches when I'd come home to visit family. I'd buy like a small $1,500 Angelus Chronodata, or I'd buy, a random, whatever chronograph. And then when I traded a Panerai and an AP Bumblebee, which was like my favorite watch.
Back then.
Favorite watch. Yeah.
Forged carbon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saved up money to buy that in Moscow. And it was like the cheapest one because you could get watches over there cheaper at the time because they couldn't export anything. I still don't think they can. Anyways, I traded 2 watches for a vintage 6262 Daytona black dial blue. And as soon as I got that watch and I put it on, I was like starstruck. I was like, oh my God, I get it. I sold every modern watch I had, which wasn't a lot. It was like 5-6 pieces. And I went deep into the vintage rabbit hole, like just obsessed. And because I was doing so much like buying, trading, selling, just for myself, people started coming to me like, hey, what do you think about that watch? Like, do you think it's refinished? Do you think it's reloomed? Do you think it's, the insert service? Like same as like questions you were asking me. And also, what do you think the market value is? Because I was just, all my free time was consumed with watches. It was really like a problem. Luckily, I didn't have any kids at the time. I wasn't married yet, so it was okay. It was manageable. But and that's why I was like, okay, well, listen, I'm gonna throw up a website, try to sell a few watches. Really, again, just to fund my own collection. But I had the confidence that I could do it because I was doing it so often for myself, anyways. And helping other people as it is. And still to this day, I help. I try to help everybody I can. I get tons of messages every day asking me to vet watches, and sometimes I just don't have the time or the bandwidth. But I really do try to help as many people as I can, whether or not they're buying a watch from me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get to everybody because you want to, try to help everybody, but it's almost impossible at times if you have a large volume of messages. But,
it's also, I have a saying now that it gets dicey, especially in vintage world, because it's like, I have a saying, if the watch is bad, don't make them sad. So for example, if somebody's showing me a watch, it could be a colleague of mine, it could be another auction house, it could be anybody who's selling it to them. And, sometimes you create unnecessary problems when it's kind of like they shoot the messenger, or you're putting yourself in the middle of a situation that you don't want to be in. So generally when there is bad news to dole out, like we just talked about earlier, I'm only telling a good friend who I know can handle it, or another dealer that I know that can handle it because, they're big boys, or somebody who I trust is going to keep the information to themselves and not go run back and say, hey, Adam said your watch is wrong, blah, blah, blah. Because there's a lot in vintage world, unfortunately, of people asking other dealers for opinions and them purposefully shitting on the watches, whether the information is true or not.
They're trying to sabotage the business.
Yeah, they're trying to sabotage the deal because they want to sell that client or they want to keep that client close to the vest. I'm the kind of guy who shares all of my clients because my clients come back to me because they've become my friends and we have the relationship, and some guys are like, no, you can't know who my clients are. Like, they can only buy from me.
I agree. I mean, the people that buy from me want to buy from me.
Right.
And if they want to buy from somebody else, they can. We don't own the clients.
Yeah, of course.
Now, I have a question. What is the biggest, I don't want to say if it's mistake or pitfall, or what is the biggest stinger deal that you can remember in the vintage world that you've had?
What do you mean?
If you want to share it, like something you bought and you made a mistake, maybe it was when you're first starting, or something that didn't turn out what to be like.
Okay.
Like what is the one that stands out? Like,
well, there is a good one. When I was first starting out, there was a Rolex chronograph reference 2021. It was the very first chronograph they made. It looks like it's like a 48 millimeter mono pusher, like from the 40s. Really old watch.
What size?
It's like 44 millimeters, 42
wow.
millimeters.
So it's big.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Okay,
They're rare,
right.
They have these like enamel dials, mono pusher. They're really rare. It was the first chronograph they ever made. And there was one that came up in this British auction house with a sterile dial. So if you don't know what a sterile dial is, that means it doesn't say Rolex on it.
Got it.
It could have been they replaced the dial. It could have been it was just supplied like that and they never stamped Rolex on it, whatever the case may be. But the case and the movement, it was all original Rolex. It was correct. Everything else was correct. I had asked my friend, who's a big vintage guy and knows the market very well. He's also a dealer himself. Wasn't at the time. What do you think about this? And he's like, well, you should buy it. I think we could sell it for like $40,000. I'm like, okay, I'll try to buy it. So I ended up winning the auction but I had a bad gut feeling. I just think that because it was a sterile dial, it didn't say Rolex on the dial, it was going to be a tough sell. I just kind of knew without knowing that people weren't going to want to purchase it because it doesn't say Rolex, even though it was incredibly rare and first reference and blah, blah, blah.
Missing the main ingredient.
Right. So I buy the watch I win the auction for $21,000. I cannot sell the watch. I get the watch. I cannot sell it. I put it in Christie's auction house. It ends up passing. And even when it passed, I was like very upset. And another dealer who's been in the business for a long time was like, listen, if you're not out there making mistakes and losing money, you're not really in the game, so don't be upset. It is what it is. And finally, after having the watch for 3 years, I think I sold it and I lost $6,000 and I got up in my office and I danced. And it is what it is. I'm dealing with a situation also with, for example, a vintage Cartier that some people are questioning the case, whether it's been restamped or not. I have a good knowledge on vintage Cartier, but I'm not by all means the expert of all experts on vintage Cartier. Not even close. Rolex, Yes, I know a hell of a lot. Other weird brands, Universal Geneve, Hoyer, Omega, whatever.
Yeah.
But Cartier, I'll admit, Patek Philippe, great. Cartier is not my forte. I always ask for second opinions when I'm not sure. This was a watch that I purchased in a big package.
So do you know, is it real or not? Or what?
It's debatable. Some people think it's okay. Some people don't. I'm not selling it until I get to the absolute bottom of it. If it turns out to not be good, $60,000 I paid for the watch.
Wow.
So yeah, and obviously I'm not going to pass that on to somebody else. Like it's something I'm going to have to eat, and I'm going to have to deal with. But yeah, so like mistakes happen. And people getting into this business, I don't think they realize that. I think that's, especially like the COVID dealers, as I call them, that just recently got into it because they bought a watch at retail. They sold it and they made $5,000. They're like, oh, well, it was easy, and then they bought another watch and, or they took a course online and, they flipped a watch and made another 500. Like, oh, it was easy, but then the markets go down or you make a mistake.
Yeah. It's a combination of the COVID flippers.
Right.
And the COVID dealers, because the COVID flippers are the guys that start getting the calls and start buying from the ADs. Mind you, these guys have no knowledge because anybody can go and pick up a watch directly from the AD and then flip it for a profit.
Yes.
Another thing is buying a watch in a parking lot. I've done that before, man.
Yep.
I've been somewhere, people be like, I've been to a show, and when I go out the show, someone stops me, and then I look at it, and the next thing you know, it's a pretty good deal. I'm like, come to the side with my loop on, and I buy it right there in a parking lot. That's a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
But, then when COVID happened, I felt like that was when the real burst of the chats happened. Like the
Yeah,
birth.
well, because everybody was stuck at home. So
Exactly. So then
there's no more IWJG.
all these COVID dealers became dealers because they had access to these chats. Not the real guys. I'm talking about the people that somehow got in those chats. One guy got in, then another guy got in, and then you fast forward a year, there's another 100 new dealers out of nowhere. They're just chat dealers.
Yeah, and the chats were great because they were born out of necessity while we were stuck inside
Correct.
for COVID, and they served a great purpose, and they still do. But it's unfortunately gotten to the point where there's so many different chats. They're so saturated, and like you said, with serious, my phone just never stops, and I've left so many of them I can't count. That there's not a lot of like wholesale deals in them anymore. So a couple of people ask like, oh, how do I get into these dealer chats? I'm like, you don't want to be. They're good for what I use them more for now is that if a client calls me and is like, hey, I'm looking for platinum Daytona
sold
or
order.
whatever, sold order exactly. Then I go put it in the chat or several chats like, hey, who has this? Please message me. And give me a price quote.
Well, what happens with those people that era of the newborns is that they missed the college, and the college in this business is getting out there, buying that sterile dial, finding out that it's not it. Any little deal that I went through, that's how you learn. People come in here and be like, oh, I want to be a watch dealer. I'm like, so what do you, they always say, what is the number one piece of advice you can give me? And my advice is always, get out there and start spending some money.
Yeah, I mean, and when the market got shaken up in August, September, I took massive losses on stuff, and it is what it is. Selling an Aquanaut, losing $30,000.
Yeah,
what just happened?
I sold my skeleton and I lost $40,000.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? It's part of the game, and it's easy business to do when everything's just going up. It's
any business is easy, right? When it's going up.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from getting into the watch game, so to speak. And everybody's always asked me, a bunch of people ask me in the past, like, oh, well, what do you think about all these new dealers? Isn't it more competition for you? I'm like, absolutely not. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's because I do business with everybody, whether it's a retail client or another dealer. I don't discriminate. So the more dealers that enter the fold, it's another person that I could buy or sell to. I really don't care. So I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from getting into the watch market. I think people just often try to jump into it and don't have a clear understanding of what they're getting into. Like when the market got shaken up in September, Jordan was telling me, somebody was telling him that there was a dealer, like a Moda COVID dealer that was like, oh, well, I just lost $250,000. Like I'm done. Like I'm out, I can't sustain this. I can't afford this, like I don't know what to do. And there's dealers who are seasoned dealers, like big guys who have well into the seven figures in losses, like, cause they just had huge inventory that all of a sudden, when the inventory drops 20, 30, 40%, like what are you going to do? But those guys, some guys that I know, they were able to weather it because they've been around, they've been doing this a long time, and markets go up, markets go down. You have to be prepared for that. And you just have to understand, eyes wide open, what you're getting into. It's just like any other business, just like any other industry.
Just like any other business, you got to be 100% dedicated to it. And, you know, the last thing I'm going to say about this whole topic is what I said, that at the end of the day, we need more influencers showing people more about how interesting and great this hobby is if you do it correctly. It's okay to lose some money in watches if you're just a private and you're collecting. You don't have to buy a watch just to make money. You're buying watches because you love them. I buy watches and I lose money for myself. It doesn't matter because I love watches. And what we need is more enthusiasts. That's what we need. That's what everybody needs to know. That's what I feel.
Well, I get what you're trying to say, because it's the problem is that in the past 3-4 years, since the market's gone up and up and up, there's been so many people getting into watches for the wrong reasons. Like,
correct. That's my message.
They're not passionate about the watches. They're not so focused on the watches. They're focused on the object and it as like an asset or an investment, you know. And it's like, oh well, you don't really love that Daytona. You just love the fact that it keeps going up and up and up, you know. And I think when you get into it for those reasons, you're getting into it for the wrong reason. Absolutely.
Yeah. So to change up the gear here, because I know we got to like wrap it up real soon, because I know you got to get somewhere. At this point in your career, do you still have like a Grail watch?
Yeah, of course.
Like mine changes.
Several.
Mine changes all the time.
My ultimate Grail watch, it's like the most cliche in the vintage world, is a Patek Philippe and Perpetual Calendar Chronograph reference 1518, but in stainless steel, of which there's only 4 known. Yeah, and the last one sold.
That's Grail.
The last one sold.
Grail.
Yeah, the last one sold for like $11 or $12 million. So I'll never,
all right,
presumably never get that watch.
Okay, well, what is the obtainable Grail watch you have right now in your head? Like a realistically obtainable Grail watch.
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to purchase and own a lot of them, and still do. You know, for me, for example, in the Rolex world, my personal favorite watch, sports watch, is the GMT. So the 6542, reference 6542, very first Bakelite bezel GMT that Rolex made. Huge Grail, and I've owned what I consider the best example in the world, which I sold, but I also own, like co-own with a collector who's become like my second dad. We own an excellent example that also has like a good story behind it. You know, I had to travel like and brave like crazy Illinois winter and fight other people, other dealers trying to buy it, and travel and meet this guy and inspect the watch. It was just a fun travel and story that means a lot to me, and that was a Grail of mine. There's other stuff out there, of course, that I haven't owned yet that I'd like to own. But like, you know, Paul Newman Daytonas, which, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, they're hyped because it's just, you know, a little bit different font. Like,
no, they're really rare.
No, they're not rare. That's the thing. They're really
nice one, yeah.
The nice ones, yeah. But yes, they're hyped and they're a lot of money. But once you own one and have one in your hand, like, it's kind of, you just have to get it, you know. And for me, they're very, very special watches, and I don't care if people think they're overhyped. You just have to get it. You know?
Look, for vintage,
right?
My Grail right now that I want is this in gold. What's the exact specs on that?
So 6263?
Yeah.
You want
just like that with that bezel and everything.
So yeah, you want gold version. It came in either a black dial or champagne dial.
Yeah.
So yeah, incredible watches.
I think I'll probably gravitate more to champagne dial.
It's funny because most people want the black dial. They go for less money, the champagne.
Yeah.
So save yourself a few bucks. But you know, buy what you like. That's it. You know?
I like the look of it. Just like you posted.
Well, because it matches gold and gold. It's like tonal. You know, it's like one tone. I agree with you.
What is something like that gonna run me?
6263 champagne, all original, like in the condition
you're gonna want. Consumer price.
But in the condition you're gonna want to buy it in.
You see, people tend to, know my condition real fast. Like,
right.
So like the way that you want it.
No, it's gonna.
I'm picky, man.
Probably around 180 to 200 for champagne.
Yeah,
a little bit more for black.
That's why I said, what's black?
Again, it depends on the condition of the watch, but figure if you want a really, really good one,
10 Gs, 20 Gs,
20 to 30 Gs. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So for a reason, every time I pick out something that I like, it ends up being too expensive. It's gonna be quite a while, which is why it's right now in my vintage Grail category.
Maybe we'll do like road to 50 subs plus one really awesome Daytona.
That's also an option. I mean, maybe when I get to 50, I just say, this is stupid. Adam was right. The reaction was like, why would you do that for? I said, why not?
No, it's you're right though. But like, you realize, like, if you really want to go like all out with the Submariners, you got to start looking at like the original ones. So first reference 6204, then after 6205, then the big crowns.
I want a little bit
and
of
we're
everything.
talking like a lot of money here,
I
friend.
know, but that's the problem. I can't. I'm in that road to 100. I don't foresee any of those in there. I want.
Yeah, but you need to.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to collect the entire collection of subs. I'm just trying to collect 100 subs that are anywhere from maybe 30 to 40 to $8,000.
Okay.
In that range. I want to have fun, man. I mean, I've bought a lot of watches in my life, both for business, personal, these crazy, 6-digit watches. And I want to have some fun with just stuff that's not so expensive. And I know it sounds ridiculous because $8,000 is a lot of money.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're very jaded with all these numbers, you know?
If I lost $8,000 and it fell out of my pocket, I can't explain to you how pissed off I would be. Like I'd be pissed for like a whole week.
Oh no, I'm with you.
I'd be pissed, But anyways,
it's one thing if you just blow it on something stupid, that's your fault. But if you lose, I'm with you.
I'd probably be pissed off too if I blew it on something stupid. I mean, that's the type of person I am. So, But anyways, I know you got to go. It's been we said 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're at 40.
We're already at 40.
We'll do this again though. I got to run and go see a watchmaker.
But listen, once again, Adam Golden here with Menta Watches. Please follow him on IG and his YouTube channel, which has been open, but now it's revised and back in effect. And feel free to comment below what you think about anything of the topics that we discussed. And if you like this video, like and share it. Also, subscribe to my damn YouTube channel. Just kidding. Do whatever you want. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, bro.